A Journey into the Heart of Darkness. In the shadow of the ancient towering oaks that lined the road out of town, Thomas McGregor glanced back at the dwindling lights of the village. The old forest had long been a subject of local lore, its depths said to be a place where time and reality bent into darkened shapes. Tonight, Thomas was determined to uncover the truth behind the whispers that had haunted his family for generations. The forest was a gaping maw of darkness as Thomas ventured further in. He could barely make out the path beneath his feet, illuminated only by the flickering beam of his lantern. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, punctuated occasionally by the distant rustle of unseen creatures. Each step seemed to echo louder than the last, swallowed by the forest's consuming blackness. Hours passed, and the chill deepened, seeping through Thomas's layers of clothing. As the lantern's light waned, he stumbled upon an ancient, overgrown stone archway partially hidden by vines. Carvings, too weathered to decipher, adorned its crumbling surface. A sudden gust of wind sent a shiver through Thomas, making the temperature drop even further. He hesitated, but then pushed through the archway, the air becoming even colder, as if the forest itself were exhaling an icy breath. The path led him to a clearing bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. At its center stood a dilapidated manor, half devoured by the encroaching forest. The manor seemed to pulsate with an unnatural energy, the windows darkened voids that seemed to stare back at him with malevolent intent. Despite the gnawing fear in his gut, Thomas felt an irresistible pull towards the house. He approached the front door, which creaked open with a groan as if it had been waiting for him. Inside, the air was dense and heavy, the scent of mildew and decay mingling with something sweeter, almost nauseating. The grand foyer was adorned with faded tapestries and broken chandeliers, their crystals glinting like malevolent eyes in the dim light. Thomas moved cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust. The deeper he ventured into the manor, the more disorienting the atmosphere became. Rooms seemed to stretch and shift, hallways twisting in impossible angles, as though the house itself was alive and conscious. Whispers, too faint to understand but too persistent to ignore, fluttered through the corridors like restless spirits. He entered what appeared to be a library, its shelves lined with decayed tomes. A peculiar book lay open on a pedestal in the center of the room. The pages were blank, but the ink seemed to shimmer with a faint, dark luminescence. Thomas reached out to touch it, and the moment his fingers brushed the surface, the temperature plummeted, and the room was enveloped in a suffocating darkness. In the pitch black, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into a mournful wail that seemed to seep from the very walls. Shadows twisted and coiled around him, their forms barely perceptible yet undeniably sinister. Panic surged through Thomas as he fumbled to light his lantern, but the flame sputtered and died, swallowed by the encroaching gloom. Desperately, he stumbled through the oppressive darkness, guided only by the growing sense of dread. The house seemed to close in around him, its walls whispering secrets of despair and doom. In a final burst of courage, Thomas sprinted towards what he hoped was the exit. He burst through a door, collapsing onto the forest floor outside, gasping for the cold night air. Behind him, the manor stood silent and foreboding, its windows now darkened as if it had never been disturbed. The whispers faded into the distance, leaving Thomas with an unsettling silence. The forest, once an inscrutable maze, now seemed almost welcoming in its simplicity. As he made his way back to the village, Thomas glanced over his shoulder one last time. The manor had vanished into the darkness, leaving only the trees and the whispered legends of those who had ventured into the heart of darkness and returned forever changed.